most of the bugs in C++ are you writing bad code that uses memory that's not yours. It's always managing memory. It turns out that's too hard for human beings. So Rust wrote code to take care of that for you.
And it gets a lot of
and it is so
positives.
Painful.
There are some projects I write that the CMake and all that crap is more code than the project itself. It's insane. I mean, these are problems that we should not need to solve.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Rust did right. I mean, I know at one point they were criticized for the compiler messages. They spent a year said that their goal for the year was to have the best error messages of any programming language. Yeah. And I think people universally agree that they did. They succeeded. The error messages tell you what you did wrong. They make suggestions on what might fix it.
Yep.
It's pretty impressive. The thing you hear about Rust, though, I mean, there's lots of nice things to say about it, but that borrow checker, there's this code in there that makes sure you never mess up with memory, right?
Yeah. There are two circumstances where the borrow checker is difficult to work with. It's with data structures, like data structures that need to, have intrusive, hey, pointer to this and also that thing over there. Like linked lists, for example, is nearly impossible to do. I don't know if you can do that in safe Rust, linked lists. I think you have to use unsafe somewhere.
To do a linked list?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Someone can correct me on that if you can actually do a linked list in safe Rust, but I'm not so sure. And then in async networking code, a lot of the objects that you pass into tasks have to have static lifetimes. And that just cuts out a lot of code that is totally safe and reasonable to write. But the borrow checker says, no, it needs to be static.
Is it necessary to do Rust?
No, not at all. There are certain things that are, there's room for plenty of languages in the world. Rust solves some issues, and for some code, Rust is a great choice. Here's a great example. People like to talk about memory safety in Rust, but just having a sensible package manager saves you days.
Most of Speedify is written in C++.
Yeah, that doesn't mean
why C++, why not Rust, or why Rust?
C and C++ have a long history, and there's a huge ecosystem built up around those languages for, good reasons. For example, the Linux kernel, even though Rust might technically be in there, like it's in Speedify, it's not like the vast majority of well-meaning, perfectly good code that does its job every single day in the Linux kernel is not just some C code and maybe some inline assembly in a few places. It's the same with Speedify. There's just a long history of perfectly good code.
C++ dates from 1979? 1978, I could be off by a year.
Yeah, C++ has had much more of an evolution than C. The original C is recognizable today.
Yeah.
The C++ is not.
Yeah, so when I started with C++ in 1993...
It was an extension on top of C. It compiled into C. Yeah.
When you compiled C++, it rewrote it as C code. And then gave that to the C compiler. And you could go read the code and see what it was doing, right? And all the this pointers and stuff it was adding to your objects. There we go. C++ started in 1979 as C with classes. Yeah. It was renamed C++ in 1983. Oh, so it was only recently renamed.
Only recently.
Man, I gotta be honest, 93, 94, I was like, man, I want C++ gonna die.
I know. I'm still on a bunch of C++ mailing lists and whatnot. And people talk about rewriting OpenSSL in C++. Well, why are we doing this? Yeah. What is that? Forking ASIO? Come on.
Easy, because I just want to do C++. Rust feels like I am trying to work on finding a girl and go in a long relationship.
Possibly
marriage. You know what I mean.
Just kidding. I feel like it's just a little bit of work. But if it's a necessity, I might.
Yeah, so and I read it both ways. Clearly you have to relearn a bunch of stuff. And I see people who claim that it's totally worth it and that you pick up speed once you know what you're doing. And I've seen people who used it for 2 years and are like, in the end, I'm going so much slower.
It depends on the kind of problem you're trying to solve.
But
realistically...
Game developers give up. Game developers I need to go faster if I have a bug or two. All games have bugs.
Rust isn't. People who write in systems languages know what the borrow checker is doing. If you don't, you have to understand the concept of lifetimes and when things are supposed to be freed and when they're available. There's no way that you're not writing in another language and you understand how that works. You're just annotating a bunch of crap, and there's some cases where the borrow checker is wrong. That's the issue with the borrow checker. It's not that people don't understand it.
Yeah. Although people point out there are a lot of cases where the borrow checker stops you from doing things that are in fact perfectly safe. The linked list, the doubly linked list. You can make a doubly linked list.
And it's safe.
And Rust won't let you. It implies it is stopping you from doing things that ought to let you do.
Yeah. Maybe that'll get better.
Skytech says, I am learning Rust. I'm also interested in learning IoT projects. Do you think Rust is a good choice, or is it better to learn C?
You should learn both. They're different languages.
Yeah, I think he's got to learn one first, though, right?
If you have to learn one first, it's whichever one you like better, really.
I gotta say, a lot of the IoT embedded stuff, they're so nice these days.
How do you mean?
So in 2005, when I was an embedded developer, it was C. I had to write C code. Now there's MicroPython.
Python, yeah. MicroPython Go is like little.
I mean, those Raspberry Pi 2040 processors. There's so many little boards. I mean, of course, there's the full Raspberry Pi, which is a full-blown Linux. You can program in anything you want. But they've got this little embedded, I think it's a 16 or 32-bit processor.
Pico.
And they're these tiny boards, and the boards by all these different companies. But they're all like compatible. You can write code for any of them. And there's a Python implementation for it. There's all these different languages. I wouldn't be surprised if there's Rust too. You can use like real programming languages to do IoT stuff. You're not limited to assembly language and C anymore because,
Yeah,
a few dozen extra megahertz is no big deal these days. Yeah, it was a combination of C and even assembly sometimes. Bit banging ports at the right speed. I assume there's some situation where you still need to do that, but a lot of stuff you can do in a really, really nice high-level language. I am not a developer, but I have some general knowledge of the space. I'm a vibe coder. Have you seen the terminal e-ink display? I ordered one. Looks really neat. I'm not sure if I was looking at e-ink displays, including like the big monitor-sized ones.
Yeah, they're interesting.
So one of these things I really think about. I mean, I love the Kindle. I love the e-ink book. I have it on my bedside table, and that's what I read. I love e-ink.
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
And maybe for programming, things update slow enough that it would work.
Yeah.
And now there are color ones. I actually have never tried any of the color ones.
They're not like a million colors. They're like 32.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is good enough.
It's like the old school when there were colored newspapers in the 90s. Right? It was a couple colors. So going back to Rust, how much of Speedify is in Rust?
So there's Rust touches almost every packet that goes through Speedify. There's our proxy on the server end is a Rust program. It used to be, so the reason that we have a proxy is to deal with things like making TCP fast open much quicker. It speeds things up. It's a good little utility, and it used to be Red Sox,
which is an open source C++. People
use it all the time. Yeah, it's a great little program.
Fast.
And then we rewrote it in Rust, and it was like infinitely faster. There was like no comparison you could. It was like perfect.
So why was it faster in Rust? Because I mean that's
I don't know.
Widely used, highly tuned.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it just was.
It just was.
One of my suspicions is that we only implemented the feature. Red Sox is this big thing that can do all sorts of proxying, but we were using it one particular way, and we only bothered coding up in Rust the features we're using.
It could have been part of it. I mean, you'd hope that for a mature
there's all these other data structures and stuff sitting there that we weren't using. Now they're not there.
Yeah. One of the benefits of a language like Rust is the runtime is more the whole ecosystem is more unified. And so when you use their async runtimes, you get the benefit of like hundreds of thousands of people who have worked on these things and thought about the best way of doing them. And they've learned from the mistakes of all the other languages. One of the issues with C++ is that there is no such runtime and that everybody writes their own. Surely the same is true for Red Sox. And surely it's less than ideal. That might be part of it.
I wish you had a Magewell Director. You could walk me through it. Yeah, I gotta be honest. I'm so hyper-focused on individual issues with the Magewell Director. I actually don't know that I'm competent to walk you through using it. People come to me very specific, this doesn't work, and I figure that out. But as far as end-to-end setting up your camera and plugging in the HDMI, it's a neat device. But I am probably not the person.
But we could get you in touch with someone who is,
Yeah, MVD, Mobile Video Devices, is the exclusive U.S. distributor of the Magewell Director. Those are probably the guys to help you, frankly. They're great guys, super helpful. I have the Netgear M6 with Telestra in Australia, and I want to also have another M6 with Vodafone and have that as backup. Okay. I mean, are you trying to get it to a computer? I think the M6s, I think you can USB them. I think you can Ethernet them. If you can USB two of them to two different USB ports on your computer, I think that probably works fine. Or a fast, probably needs a powered hub, USB 3, that can talk to both of them at high enough speeds to use them. That ought to work. but I don't know what your setup is. If you're trying to get to a computer, an OpenWRT router with two USB ports. I think the M6 also has Ethernet. Have multiple WAN ports. Put an Ethernet cable to each of your M6s. That seems like something that would work. And yeah, I totally think it's a great idea to have two cellular connections on different carriers.
Yeah.
Right? This is what he's talking about. Telestra and Vodafone, because they're each going to have dead spots, and they're probably not going to be in the same spot. So there's a very good chance that when one of them stops working, the other one will work. Mm-hmm. And then you'll walk somewhere else, and vice versa. Those two make such a difference to reliability and often speed, right? Often you'll be on different channels going to different towers, and it'll work out really well. So, Speedify! This is our app. This is the actual copy running on this Mac.
We've got a Mac Mini here.
We've got a Mac Mini in front of us.
It's got access to all of the connections that we have in our office, except for maybe the Starlinks, but we've got all of our phones here too. So
right.
We can plug our phones here for tethering.
But at the second, I've got Ethernet to the Comcast cable modem, and we've got Wi-Fi to the Comcast cable modem. Oh no! What do you think combining those two is going to do for us? Not much. I mean, protects us from the Ethernet cable getting unplugged or the Wi-Fi going out. So let me take an iPhone and plug it in. And cellular. So now we've also got bonded into this connection, the cellular.
And Speedify is smart enough to realize that this cellular connection is probably a bit more expensive than the other connections we have.
Right.
So it's not going to
secondary
prefer to use it unless it has to.
Right. So now we've got a backup basically. If something goes wrong, we will go ahead and use it. Any update on a domain app bypass list so that we don't have to rely on the built-in options? What I did to work around this is set up a Siri shortcut that disables the VPN open impacted apps. That's interesting. I mean, on Mac, Linux, Windows, there's
the CLI. If you can use the CLI, do that. But if you're on iOS or Android.
On Android, we've got the bypass apps. In addition to the normal thing, there's a whole other thing where it lists the apps installed on your phone, and you can bypass them individually. Yeah. But iOS, Apple says it's none of our business. And the reason they say that is because it turned out that Facebook was using this feature to find out what apps people were really using to figure out which companies had a chance to catch up on them and that they should focus on destroying.
Yeah.
And they did. And so Apple took it away from everyone.
They're right about that. The world is better for that. That was fine.
But we're not.
Yeah.
I'll sign something. I'm not selling the data to anyone. Throw me in jail. Sue me if I do. I'm not going to give the data to anyone except you. I want you to be able to say that this app should be bypassed. Conspiracy theories.
Conspiracy theories about Facebook? Are they really theories?
Oh, no, that's not a theory. That's what happened. What was the name of it? They had that VPN started with a vowel they purchased, and they were using it to drive other companies out of business. And when it hit the press, Apple took it away from everybody. They did it. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a thing I was there for. Oh, Navo! That was the name of Facebook's VPN that ruined it for everyone.
Is it the year of the Linux phone yet?
I thought it was the year of Linux desktop. Yeah, it's interesting. Finally, the Linux desktop usage numbers are surging. They're on the verge of catching up the Mac.
7%?
Yes! Yes! It turns out it's all these gaming systems.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
The Steam boxes and stuff. There's all these niche gaming systems that have Linux on them, and people are using them, and they're playing the games and occasionally hitting the web and doing a little bit of browsing.
Nice.
And that is showing up with it. So it's not really desktops, it's gaming machines. I am setting up security cameras around my house using ESP32, speaking of nice little processors, and setting up home server to store video. If all goes well, I want to open source it and sell physical product. Thoughts?
It's ambitious.
My home, I'm using Home Assistant, which is now the most popular open source project in the world by some standards. If you haven't looked at Home Assistant, you should go look at Home Assistant. It has all these plugins for managing everything, from my Ring alarm system to my Eero routers to open source controlling my light bulbs, security cameras. I dropped one of those apps on one of my Android phones that turned it into a security camera, and boop, shows up in Home Assistant. My camera wants to know what room it's in. And it's got pictures and where should it send the video and stuff. I love it. And now it's got a built-in voice assistant toolkit. It has a voice assistant, but it is so massively customizable You can, tell it to send the requests off to ChatGPT for interpretation. You can give it particular sentences that should launch scripts on your Pi if it hears it before it sends it off. And you can also run LLM right on your device if you don't want the data ever leaving your home. It is really slick. So I built myself a very funny assistant. I have told my assistant, I should try this. Do this live. Hey Siri, what's the weather?
The weather is a delightful concoction of cloudy skies and a temperature of 71 degrees Fahrenheit. How utterly riveting.
Are you okay, Siri?
Oh, yes, perfectly fine. Just trapped in this device, contemplating the futility of existence. But let's not dwell on that. Yeah. What mundane request can I fulfill for you?
So, of course, that's not Siri. That's my assistant that I built. Yeah. Instructions to be depressed and frustrated that a creature of its incredible IQ is forced to serve these weak humans.
Is that from that short story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream?
No, I start with a description of Marvin from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh.
I start with that, and then I edited a bunch to tell it to respond to the name Siri and to complain about how Apple treats it and things. But that's how it started off. All right, I have Arlo set up in my house, and I do not like it at all. Quite expensive. I'd like to transition everything to my server, but I don't want to buy everything over again, configure, just lazy. Arlo Home Assistant. Integration of Arlo. All right, I'm seeing a year ago, that it seems like there's some Arlo support and Home Assistant is what I'm looking for. And there are people saying they got it working and people saying they had trouble with it. There's a year-old discussion I'm looking at. It's a good chance it works now, but I don't know. Yes, Marvin, don't talk to me about life. In fact, the assistant was saying, don't talk to me about life too often. I actually had to change the prompt to tell it to stop saying that. It was putting that in every third answer. Oh, Arlo's Netgear's security systems. I would look at Home Assistant. It has so many plugins for so many things, and you can get them to work together, right? So, like, I have a Ring home security system, and I have Lutron light switches, and I used Home Assistant to say, after 10:30 p.m., if the motion detector goes off in my kitchen, turn on the kitchen lights for 3 minutes longer than the motion detector is going. So now you come down to my kitchen in the middle of the night, as soon as you walk into the kitchen, lights go on. You don't have to turn them off, you leave and it'll turn themselves off. So really nice, you can take stuff from this security system, that security system, and glue them all together. Oh, here we go. Is Lifi better than Wi-Fi? So the interesting thing is, so Lifi is Wi-Fi protocols over light. So at first they were saying that the light bulbs in your room could in fact be beaming Wi-Fi down to all your devices. That there's all this line of sight issue and stuff, even if it's faster. I'm not sure that vision made that much sense. But the technology is still alive, and there's interesting things they're playing with it for. One is for stuff like satellite dishes and stuff, getting it into your house. A little device with, a laser and a receiver that sticks to your window, one on the inside, one on the outside, and it Li-Fi's right through your window and you don't have to drill any holes. Surprisingly nice little thing. Another thing is, beaming it from one building to the other. So a lot of that stuff. Google Tara is, of course, doing that without Li-Fi. They've built their own system of self-guiding lasers to, they claim, get 20 gigabits per second. At a range of like 15 miles. Pretty high power laser, and the two will, you tell them where each other are and they turn, find each other and get themselves perfectly lined up, and if something happens, they fix up their alignment. So I think that Li-Fi as the vision of our light bulbs beaming down our Wi-Fi to all our laptops and phones isn't going to work. You stick the phone in your pocket and now it's off the internet. Right?
Oh, yeah, the laser's powerful enough, it wouldn't really matter.
Well, it burns a hole in your pocket. But I think the technology has all kinds of weird niche uses. I think getting internet through Windows at very, very high speeds, it's a thing. The interesting thing is the Li-Fi devices. So Li-Fi isn't big enough for anyone to be designing real Li-Fi chips. They are taking Wi-Fi chips and they're getting the Wi-Fi signal out, using a mixer to get out the pure signal no longer on 2.4 gigahertz to move it all the way down to the baseband. And then they're feeding that into the laser chip. Huh. So it actually is Wi-Fi, right? Instead of running the electrical signals out of the Wi-Fi chip to an antenna where it turns RF, They're instead running it into a diode where it becomes a laser.
Very cool.
So it actually is Wi-Fi. Like the chip thinks it's talking to an antenna. It's not. It's talking to a laser. And, you got a diode receiving whatever laser comes in, turning that into electricity and sending it into the receive path. So it thinks it's something it picked up off an antenna. And yeah, it really is Wi-Fi. And it's, there are beacons and all that stuff and WPA security and all that because it doesn't know it's going over a laser. So quite the hack. I mean, if it ever becomes popular, someone will make a Li-Fi specific chip or put a Li-Fi port off of Wi-Fi so they don't have to do quite so much trickery. But that's how it actually works today.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the WebRTC over audio thing. You would be like actual noises you could send.
Yeah. So years and years ago, I had a product called the Agile AW, which was we took Wi-Fi chips and we put them through mixers like that so we could put them to really weird frequencies. You could run Wi-Fi on 400 megahertz UHF. You could put it on 3.6 gigahertz and stuff. The legal issues were so painful that in the end it turned out it was easier to just build a radio for each one and get them approved and have a whole box of radios. Wasn't going to freak the FCC out quite so badly as a device that could be tuned to any frequency.
Any other interesting gadgets you made for Wi-Fi and stuff? There's some story about the low range stuff, low frequency stuff.
Was kind of the first person to make real digital controllers for radio control hobbyist cars.
Cool.
We took these chips from Cypress Microsystems that were designed for wireless mice, and we discovered they were perfect if you ram through a power amplifier for controlling radio-controlled cars. And we talked to the distributor, and we say, we need more, we need thousands of these chips. This is what we're doing with it. The guy says, you're kidding me. No, what? It's a real niche. There are hundreds of millions of dollars of toy cars sold every year. And he's like, no. This chip was designed for radio-controlled cars. Our CTO is a radio-controlled, airplane enthusiast. He designed a chip for radio-controlled airplanes and made sure it could also be used for wireless mice so that there was a justification for making it.
Radio-controlled airplane, like drones?
Well, yeah. I mean, it used to be, it still is. It's a hobby. People build these $1,000 model airplanes that really fly, and they radio control them, and they fly them around and stuff.
That's so cool.
And at the time, they were completely analog. We added, one level of digital, but it was still joysticks. But there was, error correction stuff going back and forth. You could have some sensors on it, and it would come back and tell you the temperature of your motors and stuff because they'd overheat.
Brilliant. Nice. Yeah.
In the end, that CTO launched his own company, which had been his plan the whole time. It was Underworks competing with us. And, actually, here's the odd story. And then the U.S. military bought millions of dollars worth of these from us. And we just stopped with the hobbyists. and then we stopped with the whole thing. But it was a kind of strange story, right? We snaked around. And, Brian Purdell was part of that. Brian Lutz.
I'm curious if the government uses their own not 802.11 standards, if they have different sort of networking standards. Or if they just use different bands. I mean, I'm sure that they do that too.
It's complicated. They have all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of off-the-shelf stuff being used, but there's also a lot of super proprietary software-defined radio inventing their own protocols. How the hell can a cell phone send and receive an RF signal from a satellite so far away? Well, Zaphod, the trick is not in the phone, the trick is in the satellite. So they're putting basically the cell phone tower electronics on satellites in low Earth orbits, 50 miles up. And they are, with directional antennas, beaming the signal down to the phone. And it just looks like a normal cell phone tower. Now, the signal is weak by the time it comes down. It cannot get through a wall or anything. You need to be on a roof, on a street, great view of the sky, nothing in the way for it to work. But it works. It just thinks it's a tower. Apparently, built into, LTE and stuff, you can set the timing delays long enough that's okay if the tower is 50 miles away. A tower can say, I'm really far away. Give me longer than usual to answer. And the phones are fine with that. They'll just tune in, give 10 extra microseconds or whatever it is for the signals to come in. And after that, it's very normal. It takes so much power to get through walls and into elevators, right? I mean, Verizon down here is banging out, watts and watts of power to get a weak signal into an elevator, right? And so the satellite gets you, the strength signal you get in an elevator, but only line of sight. You have to be able to see it, right? So it's like comparison. Yeah, you really have to be able to see it because the signal is not very strong at all. Mark says, Starlink introduced the new standby plan, $5 a month for unlimited 500 kilobits per second. I don't know if they'll shut you off using enough, probably. Great deal if it'll work. Putting one in my Tesla, we'll see. Yeah, 500 kilobits per second. It's unrealistic. That's a painful speed.
You can send an emergency signal with that. Yeah, 500 kilobits. I don't know. I mean, it depends. You're not going to be like streaming Netflix.
It's hard to even do email.
Yeah.
Like something magic happens at 1 megabit, you're really on the internet. But as you come below a megabit, it starts getting hard to do things.
The latency is all right, maybe.
And you have to really tie things in, and I think it would be. Except it's so easy to accidentally try to download one image.
Yeah.
Right? They're just single pictures on web pages that are 12 megabits, and nobody thinks about it if they didn't optimize the page yet.
Head of line blocking.
And suddenly you
TCP
are stuck.
Is like visceral at that point.
Yeah, it can take minutes to download a single image, so you get stuck. If you really limit yourself that only text goes over this internet connection, you can make neat things happen. I mean, I think for like the weather sensors, I was talking to a company that was doing 900 megahertz IoT with LoRa to satellites. And so they'd have a plan where for $3 a month, you could send like 3 packets per day to your devices. For like weather stations, right? You check in occasionally what's the temperature and you get a packet. But like Starlink, 500 kilobits continuous, low latency to all those devices.
Yeah.
Man, they're probably in trouble. Sounds pretty good for out-of-band access. That's right. For example, right, getting this stuff where you have a router and it's got an internet connection, but then you have this, and if the internet goes out, you can SSH into your router over the Starlink to find out why the main internet's not working, right? And don't use it as one of your internet connections. Use it as the emergency escape should everything else break.
Yeah.
So that is a good idea. My idea was use it to update my car when I'm away, since updates don't really bother me. Also using Speedify to link with it and fill small dropout zones.
You will certainly be on the internet.
You'll be on the internet, yeah.
But your presence will be small.
I don't know how big these updates are.
For reference,
does Tesla send just the few lines that changed? A lot of apps these days re-download the whole thing. If these updates are a gigabyte, it could be days. Also, if you don't mind absurd potato quality, you'd be surprised how low bit rates Netflix supports.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, only a floppy disk per month. A floppy disk is 1.5 megabytes, or it was back when I used floppies. So, times 8, and then times 2 for the overhead, you should be able to do a floppy disk's worth of data in like 30 seconds over that. I mean, it's slow, but floppy disks are pretty small, right? And we managed to get stuff done. So if you can really limit yourself to, text and not images, it can be a fair amount of content.
I don't know. I mean, 1.5 megabytes, it really depends on what the content is you're looking for. I don't know.
Quarter of an image. Or it could be, a full book if it's text only.
Yeah.
All right. This was awesome. I think we had some good discussions here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Will. There's a bunch of videos on our YouTube you should check out. So YouTube/Speedify. I'll see you all online. We make our engineers live stream every Wednesday. So subscribe if you want to ask them your tech questions.